So the government tried to list some of the problems, and here's where it gets a little bit tricky, because what they say is that and again, what they don't seem to list here is any evidence. So on the previous parts of the report, they reference where they've got the evidence, and in this part it's severely lacking. So some of the range of problems that they've said that have came to light is loss of residential housing. It says lack of availability and choice, higher rents and higher house prices, reduced community cohesion through high property and transitory visitors. Now, you may have heard me speaking about this in the last podcast, but you've got the government, and the government does many things. And one of the things that the government does is they're the gatekeeper for who builds property. So the government has a planning department that is the gatekeeper that either says yes or no to creating new homes. So they have the key to deciding, or the lever to decide if they want more homes or they want less homes. And, you know, I think they miss that in this report is that if they are saying that a big part of this is that there's a significant impact by Airbnb or short-term let properties, what you would need to draw your attention to is how many properties is there that are listed as short-term lets, and how does that compare to the total number of properties? Because there's no reference here to reference how they evidence this, and you have to go looking. Luckily enough, I'm not too bad at that. So what I have here is the National Records of Scotland information. I'll put the link in the show notes. And you want bear in mind that the report listed the predominant area for Airbnbs was Edinburgh, and the total number of listings as of 2018 was 12,000. So what you would look to try and conclude if you wanted to validate the government's point that there was a dramatic reduction in the available properties, what you would need to say is, what you would need to find in the data is that the numbers add up. So there's a significant enough of these properties that are being drawn out of the supply. And when you look at the total number of properties in Scotland, that number is 2.67 million as of 2021. And there's 12,500 on the Airbnb report as of 2018. Now, you don't need to be Carol Vorderman or a data analyst to go, it doesn't seem to make sense. Because if you were suggesting that there was, 15-20% of the properties that were taken out of supply and put to short-term lets, you would look to see a big number, and that number on 2.67 million, you're looking at 300,000-400,000 homes, and it's just nowhere near that. It's a tiny number relative to what they're proposing the problem is. So that's the first sort of red flag when you look at the potential problems is that, first of all, they don't have any reference. And when you look at the available information from their data, it shows that it's miles off. Now, let's not be critical of the government, but let's try and measure of the sentiment of the population. During the events that happened in March 2020, the government instituted rules that they asked the population to carry out certain things, and they asked them to stay locked in. They asked them to take some, how would you put it, experimental medication. They asked people to not go near their family, asked people not to drink, they asked people not to go to work, they asked people not to go out, asked people to not wear masks. And they produced information that most people went along with. But after a while, they started to question it because there was some contradictory information in terms of what the government were suggesting and what the data actually said. And I think what we're seeing now is that prior to March 2020, there would have been the majority of people would have given the government the benefit of the doubt. And I think that they've exhausted that. It seems that way, that the sentiment of the people is that we don't quite feel that we're giving you the benefit of the doubt. We need to look into it a little bit further. And the loss of the residential housing is another example of that, because quite easily we've demonstrated that it brings in a significant number of jobs for a relatively tiny proportion of the properties that are available in Scotland, and it brings in a significant amount of economic activity. So another startling figure that I found out from the National Records of Scotland is that, bear in mind, the number's 12,500 as per their report that they listed in 2018 as their measure of why they should bring in this legislation. And the total number of properties in Scotland, dwellings that are empty, is 88,000. Let that sink in. That's around 5 to 6 times the number of properties that are empty more than what's listed in Edinburgh in this report. Doesn't seem to add up, does it? There's 88,000 properties that are empty, vacant. Surely if there was a loss of residential housing, that might be a place to look. Now remember, the government is the biggest owner of social housing, so they have a significant part in that pool. They have the planning department, so they have the lever to control who can build and who can't. And there's a significant number of properties that are empty. So, and it's by orders of magnitude much higher than what they're listing as the problem on short-term lets. So it's worth considering if they've got their numbers correct. Certainly if there's more to it, more than happy to look at it. But based on what they've provided in their extensive report that's 50 pages long, there's more questions than answers here.